Hello YouTubers out there, this is Jerry Saravia at the movies, and today we will be reviewing YouTubers out there, this is Jerry Saravia at the movies, so of course we're going to take a look today at Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. I had seen this film back in 1999, and I did not attend the opening weekend, nor did I see it on opening day. Part of the reason is that I think at that time I became a little weary of Star Wars. I mean, of course, I've seen the original trilogy in theaters, all three of them, and I saw all the prequels in theaters. And I think there was a measure of disappointment after I had seen Return of the Jedi, technically Episode 6, according to George Lucas, back in 1983. I just felt that was not the most fitting conclusion to the original Star Wars trilogy. I mean, certainly not following The Empire Strikes Back, which is really one of the great science fiction fantasy films of all time. So I went to see Episode 1, I think 2 weeks after it opened. I was a little excited by it because the second teaser was a little more exciting, and you know, I said okay, well, but at the same time I didn't have the same level of interest, mainly because no Han Solo, no Princess Leia, no Luke Skywalker. This was going back to tell the story of Darth Vader, and I've always had thought that at that time anyway, and even today, that may not have been the best direction, even though I will say now I did like the prequel trilogy overall. So I went to see Phantom Menace, and I was, of course, a bit underwhelmed. It's not a good movie. It's not a bad movie, but, you know, obviously we're measuring up to the standards of the first three Star Wars films, and Return of the Jedi is not really that good a movie either, in my opinion. But nonetheless, it's not a bad movie, and I recommend it. So this one I recommend, but with clearly very strong reservations. So, now, Episode 1... right here is kind of the problem, I thought, with basically this story, which is not nearly as involving as the other ones. We learned that the Trade Federation wants Queen Amidala, played by Natalie Portman, who is the ruler of the planet Naboo, to sign a peace treaty. And her refusal sparks a war between her planet, which includes the Galactic Republic, and an Empire of Sorts regime ruled by Darth Sidious and his apprentice, a red devil-faced anti-Jedi named Darth Maul, played by Ray Park. So it is up to two freelance ambassadors, named Qui-Gon, played by Liam Neeson, who's a Jedi Master, and his apprentice, which is good old Obi-Wan Kenobi, played by Ewan McGregor. So they rescue the Queen and take her to a relatively safe planet of Tatooine, and it is there where we find the fate of the Jedi lies with a young, precocious boy named Anakin Skywalker, who of course will be the future Darth Vader, played by, in this film, Jake Lloyd. And he has a way of repairing machines such as pod machines, or pod raisers, and creating droids like the unfinished C-3PO, which is really insane. And he also has this dream of becoming a Jedi. So, I mean, there are a lot of amazing sequences in this movie, I will say that. I mean, vast landscapes of different planets and underwater cities, the kind of stuff that really opens up the space in ways that, you know, the previous films really did not. I mean, it's not to say the previous films were claustrophobic, but everything seemed real, even though you believe that they were somewhere else. And the special effects for the original three are marvelous anyway. But here, you know, it really opens up. I mean, you get a real sense of, you know, a different planet, a different terrain. And the pod race is fun. It's presided by good old Jabba the Hutt. There is so much happening, it's too fast for the eye to catch, as they make all these accelerated turns through rock formations and narrow tunnels, and everything kind of resembles Monument Valley. So the pod race is a lot of fun. You know, you see dozens of digitally created creatures in this movie. No puppetry whatsoever except for Yoda, who's back. and wildly ferocious sea animals, and then there are the bland-looking battle droids that easily come apart. And most distracting of these creatures, I think you know what I'm going to say, is Jar Jar Binks, who's a Gungan animal, amphibious animal, who speaks with a Jamaican accent. And we witness many battle sequences in this movie. Most electrifying is the lightsaber duel between Darth Maul and the two Jedis. Very superbly staged and edited stuff. But unfortunately, George Lucas, who wrote and directed Episode 1, has invested less interest in the human characters, so that the most profound and memorable character is Qui-Gon. And he's nicely underplayed by Liam Neeson, who resorts to having too much faith in the young Anakin and wants to train him despite the Jedi Council's objections. But McGregor's Obi-Wan just mostly nods and obeys his master, and I didn't get much out of him. Portman's Queen Amidala is to be the future mother to Luke and Leia. And here she seems cold and distant, and it's very uncharacteristic of her future daughter's stubbornness or sex appeal, for that matter. Just not a very interesting character. Now, there are fleeting cameos by Samuel L. Jackson as a Jedi Council member, Mace Windu. Ian McDiarmid as Senator Palpatine, the future evil emperor. Terrence Stamp, wonderful actor, as Supreme Chancellor. And Pernelia August, who was in Ingmar Bergman's film that he wrote called The Best Intentions, as Anakin's mother. She's a slave to some floating bug named Watto. These characters are noble, they're fascinating, but you wish Lucas gave them more screen time, and less to the sluggish, superficial exposition given to the Trade Federation and their plans. I mean, this is just not very interesting stuff. I hate to say, it's almost a little bit boring. I don't want to hear about trade federations and all this political mumbo-jumbo in a Star Wars movie. It's not something we'd seen in the other ones. Why are we seeing it here? It feels out of place. Now, it's not to say that Phantom Menace is still technically an entertaining movie. I mean, it's a show. It really does give you a lot of razzle-dazzle. But there's nobody there that can question the mysticism of the Force and all this talk about the political mumbo-jumbo. You know, we had that before with Han Solo. You know, Han Solo was the one who always questioned everything. We didn't take everything so seriously, and that's kind of, this movie takes itself a little too seriously, even though it's still technically a cartoon. And I wish we had seen more of the nefarious Darth Maul, who I thought certainly was one of the best, most enigmatic villains since Boba Fett. But like Boba Fett, they don't treat Darth Maul very well in this film either. So it's a treat for Star Wars fans, technically, including myself. And I love the experience of watching it. I liked seeing the brief appearances by C-3PO and R2-D2, not to mention Yoda, and there's a hysterical cameo by Jabba the Hutt. But there's no freshness to it. There's no real sense of wonder or magic that the other films had. And it's a little too plodding and superfluous. So you will come away wanting more, and a little less of Jar Jar Binks, which of course Episode 2 and 3 managed to do. So I wouldn't say it's kind of a guilty pleasure for me, only because I'm a Star Wars fan. But keep in mind, I truly hated Star Wars: The Clone Wars. That is a terrible film. And the Clone Wars series, let me tell you something. I had seen the first few episodes of the Clone Wars, and they are just awful. And for some reason I think it ended now, I'm not sure. There were a couple more seasons, and the animation is just terrible. It's just not involving. You want to talk about something that sucks all the spirit out of Star Wars, it's the Clone Wars, and particularly that movie. But anyhow, this is a lot better than those, I thought. But that's just me. I know a lot of people hate the Phantom Menace. They hated it like there was no tomorrow back in the day, 1999, and I just thought, well, yeah, it's a little disappointing, but it's not the worst thing in the world. But they, all this talk back then of raping our childhood, You can still go back and enjoy the original Star Wars films if you feel that Episode 1 was such a error in judgment from George Lucas. But I think too, a lot of fans looked at the original trilogy with rose-colored glasses. The first two Star Wars movies were fantastic. Episode 4 and 5, I have to say this right. A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back. But, Return of Jedi wasn't that good. So, but I do think, and I'll review them later on, Episode 2 and 3 are much better than Episode 1. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on it. And I look forward to The Force Awakens. I think this will be the first great Star Wars movie that we've had since Empire Strikes Back, really. Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, was also quite good, but not great. So, we'll see. I have faith in J.J. Abrams. I didn't think I'd ever say that. And anyway, so that's my verdict. And this is Jerry Saravia at the Movies, signing off.